Imagine this. A new AI model is launched on Monday. It is presented as one of the most capable models available. Developers start testing it, companies start thinking about how it could fit into products, consultants start thinking about client work, researchers start wondering what new things it can do. And then, just a few days later, access is gone. Not because of a normal product delay, not because of the company simply saying demand is too high, and not because the model is being renamed. According to Anthropic's own public statement, the United States government cited national security authorities and issued an export control directive. Anthropic says the directive requires suspension of access to Claude Fable 5 and Claude Mythos 5 by foreign nationals. Anthropic then disabled those two models for all customers to make sure it complied. That is a story I want to talk about today. But I want to be clear from the start. This is not a conspiracy episode, this is not a panic episode, and it is not a fanboy episode either. I am not going to claim secret knowledge about what happened behind closed doors. I do not have that. Most people commenting on this do not have that either. What we do have is enough public information to ask serious questions. What does it mean when advanced AI systems become part of our work, our products, our public services, our research, and our companies? But access to those systems can change suddenly because of government action, safety concerns, export controls, or decisions made by a foreign provider. For me, that is a real story. The model is the headline, the dependency is the lesson. Hi, I am Arturo. I am an independent AI and data consultant based in Oslo. I help organizations build machine learning, data platforms, and AI systems that are useful in practice. That means deployment, MLOps, data governance, privacy, security, monitoring, and all the boring pieces that make AI work outside the demo. My background is a mix of physics, business, and engineering. I have a PhD in physics, an executive MBA, and I have also taught MLOps. But in this episode, I want to keep the language simple. Because this story matters, even if you are not an AI engineer. It matters if you are a manager using AI tools in your team. It matters if you are a developer building on AI APIs. It matters if you are a consultant using AI for client work. It matters if you work in public sector, health, finance, transport, energy, education, or any other area where trust and continuity matter. And it also matters if you are skeptical towards AI. Actually, if you are skeptical, I think this story gives you some good questions to ask. Not because it proves that all AI is dangerous, it does not, but because it shows why trust has to be earned. It cannot just be demanded by companies saying their model is powerful. So the plan is simple. First, I will explain what Anthropic says happened. Then I will define a few terms including jailbreak, export control, and foreign national. Then I will talk about why this may have happened, based only on public sources and careful reasoning. And then I will spend most of the episode on consequences, especially for Norway. Because Norway is a small, open, highly digital country. We use foreign technology every day. We depend on cloud providers, software platforms, APIs, chips, security updates, and now AI models that are mostly controlled somewhere else. That does not mean we shouldn't use them. Of course not. But it does mean we should become more serious about resilience. Let me start with the timeline. On June 9th, Anthropic published a launch post for Claude Fable 5 and Claude Mythos 5. Anthropic described Claude Fable 5 as a Mythos class model made safe for general use. It said Fable 5's capabilities exceeded any model Anthropic had ever made generally available. Anthropic also described Claude Mythos 5 as a model for a smaller group of trusted users, especially cyber defenders, infrastructure providers, and later selected biology researchers. The important relationship is this. Fable 5 and Mythos 5 were closely related. Anthropic says Mythos 5 is the same underlying model as Fable 5, but with some safeguards lifted in certain areas. That is already a clue about why the release was sensitive. Anthropic was not only launching a better chatbot, it was launching a very capable model that could work long, complex tasks, including coding, cybersecurity, biology, and agent-like workflows. The safe public version was Fable. The more open trusted access version was Mythos. Then, on June 12th, Anthropic published a statement with a much more dramatic title. A statement on the US government directive to suspend access to Fable 5 and Mythos 5. In that statement, Anthropic says the US government, citing national security authorities, issued an export control directive. The directive, according to Anthropic, was to suspend all access to Fable 5 and Mythos 5 by any foreign national, whether inside or outside the United States, including foreign national Anthropic employees. Anthropic then says the net effect was that it had no option but to abruptly disable Fable 5 and Mythos 5 for all customers to ensure compliance. Anthropic also says access to all other Anthropic models will not be affected. That distinction matters. This was not, based on the statement from Anthropic, a shutdown of all Claude models. It was about Fable 5 and Mythos 5. Anthropic says it received the directive at 5:21 p.m. Eastern Time on June 12th. It also says the government later did not provide any specific details of the national security concern. Anthropic says its understanding is that the government believed it had become aware of a method of bypassing or jailbreaking Fable 5. Anthropic also says it reviewed a demonstration where that specific technique was used to identify a small number of previously known minor vulnerabilities. Anthropic says those vulnerabilities appear relatively simple and that other publicly available models could discover them as well, without requiring a bypass. So we have two things at the same time. First, the government action was, as described by Anthropic, very serious. It used national security and export control language. Second, Anthropic appears to disagree with the severity of the technical finding. Anthropic says it is complying with the legal directive, but it believes this is a misunderstanding and is working to restore access as soon as possible. That tension is part of why the story became dramatic. One side, according to Anthropic, is saying, national security, export control, foreign national access, suspend the models. Anthropic is saying, we will comply, but the evidence we have seen looks narrow, not universal, and does not justify recalling a commercial model. That is the factual flaw. Everything above that needs evidence. Before we go further, let me define a few terms. The first term is jailbreak. In AI, a jailbreak means a way of getting a model to ignore its safety rules. OWASP describes jailbreaking as a form of prompt injection where an attacker gives inputs that cause the model to disregard its safety protocols. The simple version is this. Imagine a very capable assistant that has a safety manual. It is supposed to refuse certain kinds of dangerous help. A jailbreak is an attempt to talk the assistant into ignoring that manual. For a normal chatbot, that might mean getting it to say something rude or unsafe. For a frontier model with strong coding, cyber, and science capabilities, the stakes can be much higher. A jailbreak could, in theory, help someone bypass restrictions around vulnerability discovery, exploit writing, biological workflows, or other sensitive areas. The second term is vulnerability. A vulnerability is a weakness in a system that could be exploited by a threat. That is the plain language version of the NIST definition. If a model helps you find vulnerabilities, that can be very good. Security teams need to find and fix those weaknesses. But it can also be dangerous. Attackers also want to find weaknesses. This is why cybersecurity is dual use. The same skill can be used for defense or offense. The third term is export control. Export control means rules about who can receive access or use certain technologies. It is not only about shipping a physical object across a border. In some cases, it can involve software, technical information, model weights, systems, or access to control technology. The US Bureau of Industry and Security also has the concept of deemed export. At a high level, that means releasing controlled technology or source code to a foreign person inside the United States can count as an export. That helps explain why the phrase foreign national matters. It can matter even if the person is physically in the United States. But we should be careful. The public export control pages explain the general concept. They do not, by themselves, explain the exact legal basis of this specific directive. Anthropic says the government letter did not provide specific details in the public statement. The fourth term is foreign national. In everyday language, a foreign national just means someone who is not a national of the country making the rule. In this case, Anthropic says the directive applied to foreign nationals inside or outside the United States, including foreign nationals that work at Anthropic. For a Norwegian listener, this is important. Norway is a close US ally. Norway is in NATO. Norway is not an adversary. But under this type of wording, a Norwegian citizen can still be a foreign national in US legal language. That does not mean Norway was targeted. It means the category is very broad. And if your access to a frontier model depends on that category, then your nationality, location, employer, sector, or end use may become part of the risk picture. Now, why did this happen? The honest answer is we only know part of it. We know what Anthropic says. We know the launch context. We know the access statement. We know Anthropic's description of the government concern. We know Anthropic disagrees with the severity based on what it says it has seen. But we do not know the full government reasoning. We do not know the exact issuing agency from the public statement. We do not know the full technical evidence. We do not know whether there were other concerns not shared publicly. So instead of pretending, let us think a little bit about things just from the ingredients that we have. The ingredient 1, capability. Anthropic presented Fable 5 as a very strong model for long and difficult work. The Fable product page describes days-long, complex, asynchronous tasks. It describes agent harnesses where the model can plan across stages, delegate to sub-agents, and check its own work. That is just not a chatbot. That is a model being used as a worker inside a larger system. Ingredient 2, cybersecurity. Anthropic says Fable 5 had safeguards because without them, capabilities in cybersecurity could be misused or to cause serious damage. Anthropic describes Mythos 5 as a highly capable for cybersecurity and biology research, and says it could be used both for good and harm. That is exactly the kind of area where governments become nervous. If a model can help defenders find vulnerabilities, it might also help attackers find vulnerabilities. If it can help write and test code, it can also help write and test malicious code. If it can plan across steps and use tools, the risk is not only one bad answer. The risk is a whole workflow. Ingredient 3, biology and chemistry. Anthropic's own launch material describes sensitive biology and chemistry capability. I am not going to go into operational details here. The broad point is enough. Models that can help with advanced scientific workflows can be extremely valuable, but some of the same skills can also become dual use. Ingredient 4, safeguards. Anthropic did not simply say, here's a powerful model, have fun. It built Fable 5 with safeguard routing. For certain flag topics, Anthropic says requests will be routed to a different model, Opus 4.8, instead of allowing Fable 5 to answer. That tells us Anthropic itself saw the release as sensitive. Ingredient 5, the alleged bypass. Anthropic says the government concern, as Anthropic understands it, involved a method for bypassing or jailbreaking Fable 5. So, if you put those ingredients together, the shape of the concern becomes easier to understand. A very capable model, a strong coding and cyber capability, biology capability, safeguards as part of the release, a possible method for getting around those safety safeguards, a government worried about national security. That does not prove the government was right. It does not prove Anthropic was right either, but it explains why this was not treated like a normal product bug. This is what happens when AI stops being a toy and starts becoming a strategic infrastructure. What we know and what we don't know. Let me pause and separate the facts from the unknowns. What we know, based on Anthropic's official sources. Anthropic launched the Claude Fable 5 and Claude Mythos 5 models on June 9th. Anthropic says Fable 5 was broadly available and Mythos 5 was restricted to a trusted set of users. Anthropic says the US government issued an export control directive citing national security authorities. Anthropic says the directive requires suspension of Fable 5 and Mythos 5 access by foreign nationals. Anthropic says they disable Fable 5 and Mythos 5 for all customers to ensure compliance. Anthropic says other Anthropic models were not affected. Anthropic says the government letter did not provide specific details. Anthropic says its understanding is that the concern involved a method for bypassing or jailbreaking Fable 5. Now, what do we not know? We do not know the full technical details of the alleged bypass. We do not know the full government reasoning. We do not know whether other evidence exists that has not been shared publicly. We do not know whether the directive will be temporary or whether access will return soon. We do not know whether this becomes a one-off incident or a precedent. We do not know whether this will affect future models from Anthropic or other labs. And we should not pretend that we know. This matters because AI news become emotional very quickly. Some people will say, this proves the models were dangerous. Some people will say, this proves the government overreacted. Some people will say, this proves frontier AI should be nationalized. Some people will say, this proves open models are the only answer. Maybe parts of those arguments have value, but the responsible position is to start from what it is confirmed, then reason carefully from there. My view is this. The important lesson is not that one side is obviously right and the other side is obviously wrong. The important lesson is that access to advanced AI has become a serious dependency. If your work, your product, your public service, your research, or your company depends on one model, then you have to ask what happens if that model disappears tomorrow. That is the real question. So why should people in Norway care? Because Norway is exactly the kind of country that can benefit a lot from AI, while also being exposed to foreign technology dependency. Norway is small, open, wealthy, digital, and high trust. We have strong public institutions. We have advanced industries. We have energy, maritime, transport, telecom, finance, health, public sector, food production, defense-adjacent environments, and a lot of specialized knowledge work. We also have a relatively small language market, even with bokmål, nynorsk, Sami languages, and English in professional use. That means we are not going to build everything ourselves, and we should not try to build everything ourselves. We will use global AI platforms. We will use US cloud providers. We will use European services. We will use open weight models. We will use local systems where it makes sense. It will be a mix. But this event shows the weakness of pretending that access is guaranteed. Norwegian regulation can tell Norwegian organizations how AI must be used safely. The EU AI Act, through the EEA path, will matter for Norway. The Norwegian government is preparing implementation through a Norwegian AI law. NCOM is expected to have a coordinating role. Datatilsynet, DigDyr, and the AI sandbox will matter in practice. But regulation is not the same as availability. Norwegian law can say, use AI responsibly, protect privacy, keep documentation, have oversight. It cannot force a US provider to keep a frontier model available in Norway if US national security or export control decisions say something else. That is the gap. Compliance tells us how to use the tool. Availability tells us whether you can use the tool at all. A Norwegian company can do everything right. Everything right on the GDPR. It can have a data processing agreement. It can have security review. It can have a DPIA. It can have governance. And still, a foreign provider can change access, terms, pricing, model behavior, safety policy, or region availability. So the Norway question is not only, are we allowed to use AI? The question is, can we rely on it when it matters? This is a much harder question. Let us make this practical. For companies already using AI, the lesson is not stop using AI. The lesson is map your dependency. Which AI tools are people using? Which models are built into your products? Which teams depend on AI for coding, support analysis, document, translation, research, or customer communication? What data goes into those systems? What happens if access disappears for 1 hour, 1 day, or 1 month? If a company cannot answer those questions, it does not really have AI governance. It has AI usage. That is a big difference. For public sector, the issue is even sharper. Norwegian public bodies have to care about continuity, transparency, procurement, data protection, and public trust. A municipality cannot just say, the model changed, so the service became unreliable. A health organization cannot just say, the vendor changed the model, so our workflow is broke. A public agency cannot just say, we did not know that the model was being routed somewhere else. That is not good enough. Public sector does not need to become a technology company, no, but it must become a better technology buyer. That means procurement needs to ask better questions. Which model is used? Can the model change without notice? What happens if the model is unavailable? Where is data processed? Can customer data or citizen data be used for training? Who are the sub-processors? Can we audit the system? Do we have a fallback? Can we export our data, prompts, evaluation sets, and logs? What happens if export controls, sanctions, or policy changes affect access? These questions might sound boring, but boring is good. In real system, the boring questions are often the difference between a useful AI service and a future incident. For regulated industries, this becomes operational resilience. In finance, trust and compliance matter more than speed alone. In energy, a critical infrastructure, a digital dependency can become a national resilience issue. In transport, a digital failure can become a timetable problem, a customer problem, and sometimes a safety problem. In healthcare, technology must earn trust at the bedside, not only in the boardroom. In food production, AI and data can help with quality, traceability, logistics, and margins, but resilience matters. In defense adjacent or security sensitive environments, convenience is never free. Every shortcut creates a dependency someone must own. This is where my own professional bias comes in. I have worked with AI, data platforms, MLOps, privacy, and secure systems in real organizations. The model is almost never the whole problem. The hard part is the system around the model. Data, access control, login, monitoring, fallbacks, people, procurement, risk ownership, incident response. If those parts are weak, a strong model can make the organization faster, but also more fragile. Now let us talk about developers, product teams, and people building on top of AI APIs. A sudden model suspension is not just a naming issue. It is not always as simple as changing Fable 5 to another model name. Models are different. They have different strengths, context windows, refusal behavior, tool calling reliability, JSON reliability, latency, pricing, and error modes. If your product or process depends on one model, and that model disappears, many things can break. Your agent might loop, your coding assistant might produce lower quality patches, your customer support bot might become more cautious or less cautious, your structure output might fail validation, your cost might change, your latency might change, your safety behavior might change, your old evaluations might no longer mean much. This is why AI builders need model substitution tests. In simple language, that means try the same task on your backup model before you need it. Do not wait for the outage. If you have an AI feature, you should know which models can run it, which models can run it with lower quality, and which models should not run it at all. For high-risk tasks, the fallback might be even human review. For low-risk tasks, the fallback might be another model. For some tasks, the correct fallback is to stop and say, this feature is temporarily unavailable. That is better than silently switching to a model that behaves differently and letting users discover the failure. Developers also need observability. You need to know which model answered which request. You need to know when fallbacks activated. You need to track error rates, latency, refusal rates, output validation failures, user complaints, and costs. If you do not track those things, you cannot tell whether you have an outage, a model quality problem, a safety filter change, or user behavior change. For agent systems, this is even more important. Agents amplify model behavior. A small reliability drop at each step can become a big failure over a long workflow. So, if you are building agents, you need circuit breakers. You need max steps. You need tool call validation. You need human approval for sensitive actions. You need logs. You need replay tests. A demo is not production. A model that works beautifully in a demo may still fail in a customer workflow after 3 tool calls, 2 retries, 1 bad document, and a change safety policy. That is the real world. For freelancers, consultants, founders, and knowledge workers, the lesson is similar but more personal. If AI is now part of your work, treat it like infrastructure. It is not magic, it is not a toy, and it is not like a secret shortcut you never mention. If you use AI in client work, you need to think about confidentiality. What can you paste into a tool? What should be redacted? What requires client approval? Are you using a consumer tool or an enterprise setup? Can inputs be used for training? What are the data retention terms? If your name is on the work, you own the work. You cannot say, the AI or the agent said so. That is not a professional answer. A better position is this. I use AI to accelerate research, drafting, coding, synthesis, and iteration. But I remain responsible for the final work. That is a professional version. For heavy AI users, I will suggest a few simple habits. Keep access to more than one AI system. Keep important prompts, templates, notes, and workflows outside any single platform. For important work, save the model name, date, prompt source material, and final human decision. Verify what matters. For code, run tests. For research, check the sources. For business claims, check the numbers. For client deliverables, review tone, assumptions, and overclaims. Separate ideation from execution. AI is excellent for options, drafts, objections, summaries, and alternatives. But final judgment should come from a human who understands the context and the consequences. This is especially important for consultants. Clients do not pay for a pile of AI slop. They pay for judgment. If AI helps you get to better judgment faster, that is valuable. If AI lets you produce confident nonsense faster, that is dangerous. Now, let me speak directly to people who are skeptical towards AI. If this event makes you less trusting of AI companies, that is understandable. Skeptics get several things right. First, trust should not be automatic. AI systems are built by companies, trained on imperfect data, deployed under business pressure, and sometimes explained with marketing language. Asking who benefits and who is accountable is reasonable. Second, demos are not enough. A model can look amazing in a launch video and still create problems when it is used by millions of people, connected to tools or placed inside high-stakes workflows. Third, transparency is often weak. Many people using AI systems cannot inspect the model, the training data, the safety filters, or the internal evaluation results. Fourth, harm is not always distributed equally. When automation fails, the burden often falls on people with less power: customers, workers, students, patients, applicants, or citizens who do not know how to challenge a decision. So yes, skepticism is healthy. But I also think skeptics can sometimes miss something. AI is not one single thing. Some AI uses is reckless, some is overhyped, some should not be deployed at all. But other AI use is narrow, useful, and already helping with accessibility, translation, code review, research, security, document handling, and decision support. The right question is not simply, is AI good or bad? The better question is, which systems, used by whom, for what task, under what rules, with what safeguards, and with what accountability? That is a more useful question. I do not think the answer is blind acceleration. I do not think the answer is blanket rejection. The answer is evidence-based use. Use AI where it clearly helps. Restrict it where the stakes are too high or the safeguards are too weak. Test it. Monitor it. Give people a way to appeal. Make sure someone is responsible. And when something goes wrong, do not hide behind the model. But what should Norway do? I do not think Norway should respond with fear. I do not think Norway should respond with naive optimism. The practical response is resilience. Here are 5 questions I think every organization should ask. Question 1. Where are we using AI? Not only official projects, also informal tools, browser extensions, coding assistants, chatbots, document tools, customer support experiments, shadow AI. You cannot govern what you cannot see. Question 2. What happens if access disappears tomorrow? If the answer is nothing serious, fine. Maybe it is a convenience tool. If the answer is a customer service stops, a product breaks, a reporting process fails, or a team cannot deliver, then it is infrastructure. Treat it that way. Question 3. Can we switch models? This does not mean every workflow must support 10 models. But important workflows should have options. Keep prompts portable where possible. Keep evaluation sets. Keep data outside the model provider. Avoid putting too much business logic into one model's behavior. Question 4. What data and decisions are involved? Is the data personal? Is it confidential? Is it regulated? Is it source code? Is it public sector data? Is it health, finance, legal, HR, safety, or security data? If the stakes are high, the governance must be stronger. Question 5. Who owns the fallback plan? This is the question people skip. Who can disable the AI feature? Who informs users? Who calls legal, security, privacy, procurement, or communications? Who talks to the vendor? Who decides when it is safe to turn the system back on? If you only answer those questions during the incident, you are too late. For Norway, more broadly, I will add 3 strategic points. First, keep using the best global tools, but do not depend on one single path. Second, invest in European, Nordic, Norwegian, and open alternatives where they create resilience, language capability, privacy control, or public sector trust. Third, build competence, not only infrastructure. A local model is not automatically safe. An open weight model is not automatically compliant. A European provider is not automatically reliable. A US frontier model is not automatically risky. Everything depends on the use case, the data, the controls, and the people operating the system. For some tasks, a hosted frontier model will be the right choice. For some other tasks, a smaller local model will be better. For some tasks, the right answer is no AI at all. Mature AI strategy is knowing the difference. Let me close with the main point. The Anthropic Fable 5 and Mythos 5 situation is dramatic because of the names, the timings, the government directive, and the national security language. But the long-term lesson is bigger than Anthropic. Advanced AI is becoming an infrastructure for writing, for coding, for analysis, for research, for customer support, for public services, for security, for science, for daily knowledge work. An infrastructure needs resilience. If a model can disappear from your workflow, it has to be managed like infrastructure, not treated like magic. For Norway, this is not a reason to hide from AI. It is a reason to become better at using AI. Better procurement, better governance, better fallbacks, better evaluation, better data protection, better public debate, better technical competence, and more honest communication about what we know and what we do not know. I think the best path is not panic and not hype. It is disciplined adoption. Use the tools, learn fast, build real value, but keep controls of the things that matter. Because when AI becomes part of the operating system of society, the question is not only how powerful the model is, the question is whether the people, companies, and public institutions using it are mature enough to handle the dependency. That is a real test. Thank you for listening. If this was useful, I would like to hear what you think, especially if you are in Norway and working with AI, public sector, security, compliance, startups, or consulting. What should Norway do when critical AI tools are controlled by foreign platforms? Should we build more national capability? Work more closely with European and the Nordics? Use more open weight and local models? Negotiate better access to procurement terms? Or simply keep using the best tools available and accept the dependency? I do not think there is one simple answer, but I do think we need the conversation. Thank you.